Hey, what's up, Rebels? So excited to have you. As many of you know, one of my favorite parts of the year are when I get to interview our Location Rebel Academy members and tell their stories and share some of their successes. And today we are talking to Allison Troutner, who joined less than 6 months ago and is already on her way to having a successful freelance writing business. And we're going to talk a little bit about how she got going with it, some of the ups and the downs she's experienced starting to build a business online through writing while having kids while working and everything that entails. So, Allison, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Yeah, awesome. No, I'm excited to talk to you. You guys are great.
So, Allison, you got started with freelance writing and Location Rebel like 6 months ago. What got you to the point where you decided that you wanted to build this type of business, and what have the last couple of years looked like leading up to getting going with it?
Yeah, sure. I guess it kind of goes back to the past few years. I was working your typical 9 to 5 office jobs, and
Hmm.
my last two jobs, both of which I really enjoyed. I had really good bosses, and 401k matches,
Yep,
HSA, that the whole thing, healthcare, health benefits, but it wasn't satisfying. I mean,
totally.
I had great relationships with the people I worked with and the people I worked for, but it wasn't getting me up in the morning.
Yeah,
And 3 years ago, I had my first child, so my daughter, and then I also have an 18-month-old. And as you know, with your own little girl,
hmm,
the whole dynamic of your work-life balance changes with
yep,
kids. And so, right before the pandemic, I was feeling a lot of that grind culture and just the monotony of every day being on autopilot, waking up, making breakfast, changing kids, commute, daycare, commute to work, get back in
totally.
car, commute back to daycare, the whole thing, and then repeat, rinse, wash, repeat. And it was exhausting. And so when the pandemic hit, I think with a lot of people, that autopilot was forced to disengage.
Right.
And I was actually able to look internally and say, what am I interested in? What are my strengths, right? And
Yeah.
I was furloughed a few months after the pandemic started. And that was, it was fine. I was actually, to be honest, making more on the furlough like a lot of people. And I
Yeah.
was like, this is great. So home with my kids. And then they were ready to bring me on back into the office. And I was like, I don't know, guys. I just don't think I can do it. So I quit and took some time off to be with my kids and then realized this was just the full opposite end of the spectrum and also doesn't fit my personality and my lifestyle. I love my kids. I don't just
Yeah.
like them, I love them. But I don't know that I can be home with them all the time either. So that was what ultimately led me to Location Rebel. And I started in January the courses just to try to help me. I knew I loved writing and I really wanted to try and make a business out of it. So I was like, somebody's going to have to give me the tools to do that because I haven't been able to do it by myself so far. And that's
Totally.
where I got to where I am.
So I want to go back to where you quit your job because that's something that so many people have a lot of anxiety about. A lot of people have been thinking about it. Um, what was it like when you quit, not knowing what you were going to do next? Did you have a bunch of anxiety? Like, did you have that fear, like, oh my God, what have I done? Or once you left, where you're like, yeah, this was the right decision. I don't know what's next, but it feels right.
Yeah, so it was a little bit of all of that, but I think I'm definitely a planner. And
Yeah.
so my husband and I had a conversation about it. It wasn't like I just quit my job and was like, oh, by the way, I quit my job. And so my
Yeah.
husband was working full time too, and so we created a budget, and it was a really, really tight budget. Like kind of imagine putting on your belt from the fifth grade now, 25 years later, and seeing if it fits. So that was the kind of budget we were on, and it was tough,
Yeah.
but we knew that in order for me to take this step, which he fully supported,
Hmm.
that was what was going to have to happen, right? So we made sure that financially we were safe, the kids were comfortable, and then I felt more comfortable taking that step, if that makes sense. And
Totally.
um, and then from there, I at first I put a lot of pressure on myself. I was like, you have to get clients, you have to do this and do that. And I think I took on too much at once because I was still with my kids full time.
Yeah.
And Then when I got my kids into a little bit more regular childcare situation, which happened more recently, I was able to take on more work. So I sort of just took off bits and pieces
Yeah.
and made those decisions along the way and was really communicative with my partner and making sure that we both were feeling okay with the workloads and the pressure on the family. And yeah.
I love how much of a plan you had for it. It's like it wasn't just like I'm terrified or I don't like this, like I'm just gonna quit. Like the thought that you put into the process, I think a lot of people can learn from. It also reminds me, you're talking about like, a tight budget. I remember when I left my job, I was working on Location Rebel. I hadn't like wasn't making any money from it. But I found this website. It was like $5 dinners. And my girlfriend at the time, now wife, she was like, why are you buying like meat off the sale rack that looks like, because I was like trying to like, figure out how I could save all these money. But that was like the one thing she continues to remind me of. She's just like, remember when you found that $5 website and like you kept making these really cheap dinners? Anyway, that was my experience at that time. But um, so you found Location Rebel, you jumped in, you started working. What were those first few weeks like? Did you start reaching out to people and building that freelance business right away? Were you just digesting content? What were those early days like?
Yeah. So, the first few weeks, I do believe I jumped in to find an accountability group right away.
Uh-huh.
So that was the part I probably wasn't so sure about, like
Yeah.
meeting strangers. I was worried about my personal security. It seemed so silly at the time, but I was like, how do I know these people aren't creeps? And, on the
It's the
forum,
internet. It's a fair concern.
okay, yeah, right. It is fair. So I jumped on the forums and I actually found a group of people relatively quickly who had joined around the same time. I think
Yeah.
there's 5 or 6 of us now, all over the world, really. One of them, she lives in the UK. Daryl, he's in Hawaii, a few people in California, someone in North Carolina, and we're all at the same phase. And so I think most of us did the 12-week boot camp, and
Yep.
that I believe is what I started with. And there was definitely a period where I got started and then stopped, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh no. And one of the things I did right away after I did my accountability group, and it was actually something my husband suggested. I feel like I
Yeah.
have to give credit for this, but he said you just need to call local people, like call somebody who has the job that you wish you had or that you really admire. So I
Yeah.
did some Googling and I found this woman. I really liked her articles. I liked the niches that she was in, which was actually a lot of niches, and I
Yep.
didn't think that was a possibility. And so I shot her an email and I said, hey, I'm just, this new writer, blah, blah, blah. And she got back to me within a week and was like, I would love to talk to you. And our first phone call, I think we talked for over 2 hours. It
Oh,
was
that's
amazing.
amazing.
And she has, I mean, decades of experience writing in the industry and the industries I'm writing in, as well as just writing in general and doing different things. And so that was a huge point for me, just to have somebody who's in the industry say, yes, this is possible and I believe in you. Um, that was a game changer for me, and I think that's what really helped me start pursuing the rest of that 12-week boot camp, which I followed pretty closely.
Definitely. It's one of the things that we've talked about in the course, but the idea of the milestone mindset. Like so often people are like, yeah, like I just want to make $10,000 a month and quit my job and that's it. You kind of look at the scoreboard and you're like, okay, well, I haven't done that yet, so I've made 0% progress. But when you can kind of look at it and say, okay, I'm going to reach out and I'm going to talk to my first potential client, I'm going to get my first job, and you kind of lay out all those, smaller milestones, it makes it easier to kind of say, oh, like I am building momentum, I am making progress. And it sounds like that was a little bit of the case for you. It's like you had that kind of one small win, and then that kind of gave you the motivation to kind of keep moving and pursuing the business. Would you say that's true?
Yes, I would say that's true. And I think something else, as I was, like brushing my teeth this morning, thinking about this call, um, it was important that I found my why,
Yeah.
and I think you guys might talk about this too, but it's important to find that motivating factor because in the beginning it is really hard. Like you don't know what you're doing. You don't even know the niches you want to write in or who
Yep.
you want to email. And it can feel really defeating at first. Like you've bitten off more than you can chew. But my why was that work-life balance, right? Like I know what it's like to work in a 9 to 5. I know that that's not satisfying. That's not fulfilling. So my only choice is to make this work or go back to that life. And I mean, there are other companies that are doing more flexible work from home stuff now,
Right.
but to me, I felt like I had to make that decision. And honestly, when I'm laying in bed and I'm feeling insecure, or whatever, that's the thought that keeps me going is like, I've got the support system, I've built that. And then I have my why. I know that if I continue to do this, I'm going to get that lifestyle that I've been working so hard to build. And you can
Uh,
always fall back on that.
Totally. And I love that point because, I've talked to thousands of people over the years that are looking to build businesses, and most of them couldn't tell you really why they want to do it. They're like, well, I'm not happy with what I'm doing, but I don't necessarily know what's driving me forward. I don't know, what my perfect day looks like. I don't know what I want my future to look like. I just want it to look different than where it's at now. So the fact you actually consciously took the time to say, this is why I'm doing this, I think is a really important lesson for a lot of people that are thinking about like, why am I, considering becoming a freelance writer? Maybe someone watching this video is like, why am I thinking about joining Location Rebel? I really like that you mentioned that. So as you started building your business, as you started, reaching out, are there other aspects of Location Rebel that were beneficial to you? Was it just, the accountability and the community that you found? Was there helps for like pitching or finding work? Like what were some of the most, valuable aspects of the community for you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, what isn't valuable, right? There's so many resources on there. And I mean, I'm not even just saying that. It's true because every time I would work with a client or encounter something I didn't know, LRA was the first place I would go, right? I
Yeah.
mean, just the blueprints and the forums, just type something in to see if somebody else had asked that question. And as you know, I'm always asking questions about pitches. Doing the office hours are really great because, like I said, with the woman I called, who is now my mentor, just
Yeah.
being able to talk to someone over the phone and ask those questions and get that feedback is really important. So I have found the office hours to be really valuable, where I can ask those specific questions, and being able to jump online and look at things. Because even this morning, for example, with having a recent article of mine published, I was like, wait, how do I engage with the editor? Do I tag him? Do I don't tag him? What's the etiquette here? And so
Yeah.
I jumped on the forums and I asked, and Liz immediately was like, yeah, you're overthinking it. Just do this. Step one, step two. And I was like, okay, that's what I was thinking. But it is, yeah, there's so much support there. Um, and I mean, I think you guys really highlight that there is a lot that goes into building this business, right? But just because something isn't in your skill set right now does not mean that it can't be.
Totally.
And so you can't learn everything all at once. You just have to start doing. And when you have those questions, go back. And that's where Location Rebel really helped me, because every time I have a question, I know exactly where I'm going when I'm looking for the answer.
Well, and that's kind of the hope that we try and provide. It's like, it's not like you're doing everything in a vacuum. It's like a lot of courses, it's like, cool, here's the information, you're on your own, do with it what you will. But we recognize that, it doesn't actually work like that. Like you're going to have roadblocks, you're going to have questions. And so we really try and do everything we can to be responsive. And so it's great to see that, you can go to the forums and get a response that quickly for something that's obviously pressing at that time. So that's great to hear. For the person that's sitting here, they're watching this, they're like, okay, I'm thinking about joining Location Rebel. I'm not sure if I should join. Are you a scam? Like, what advice would you give to that person that's, maybe on the fence and thinking about joining the community?
Well, first, it's not a scam, so that you can know that. Definitely worth it. I I guess what I would say is that for me, the biggest thing I really had to get past was that fear,
Hmm.
and to just do. Um, like I said, to you, Sean, earlier, that the biggest thing that makes me different than the successful writers or entrepreneurs that I follow on social media is the fact that they're doing it, right? Or
Yep.
they've been doing it just a little bit longer than I have. And it just takes me doing something every day
Yeah.
to get me closer to those goals that I have, those goals that I've set for myself. And joining Location Rebel was really that. It feels like a big financial investment, and it is, right? But within just a few months, I had already paid that off because I
Yeah.
followed the steps and I used you guys as a resource heavily. I was like, well, hey, I paid X number of dollars for this. You bet I'm jumping on that forum. I'm
I'm
going to
gonna
make
get my
it worth
money's
it.
worth.
Yeah, I'm going to make that value back. And I mean, time and time again, you guys definitely have. Because, like I said, I mean, Liz, I don't know how Liz does it. She seems like she would be very busy, but she's on my questions
She
like that.
she is unbelievable. But I think, one of the things that you kind of highlighted that I think is important for people to kind of get their head wrapped around is that the work itself isn't necessarily difficult. It's not hard work. What's hard is battling yourself and the emotions and the ups and downs. And like, if you get 10 no's in a row, to be able to have like the, courage and motivation to send the, 11th email, really so much of it comes down to consistency. And it's like, a lot of times I say, it's like, I don't know anyone that's put in a little bit of effort every single day on their business for a year or 2 years and not have a certain level of success. And so, with Location Rebel, what we try and kind of, point out is that you're not going to have all the answers. You're not going to know everything, but we're going to give you the resources so you at least have, whether it's in the forums, whether it's in the, the blueprints, whether it's, learning how to, Google search something. It's like, we're going to give you the tools you need to find the answers that you have as they come up. And so I feel like a lot of people get intimidated by the fact it's like, well, I don't know, or I'm not technical, or I'm not entirely sure what to do. So the fact that you kind of pointed out that, you don't have to have all the answers. You can still get started, and just knowing your why and moving forward with that is usually what you need to propel your business into being a success. So, so with all that said, is there anything else you would want to add about your experience with the community, your experience starting the writing business? Are you glad that you chose this path for yourself as opposed to going back to another 9 to 5?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wrote down a couple notes just because I thought you were going to ask this question. So, definitely don't regret it at all, right? And it's still, 6 months old. It's a little baby business, but it's a business.
Totally.
It's paying the bills. It's putting food on the table for my family, and that keeps me going, right?
Yeah.
And I definitely have accepted aspects of this lifestyle. There are pros and cons. And in the article, the future of the working mom grind that I wrote for Medium, I
Hmm.
talk about how I didn't choose this job as a freelance content and copywriter because I thought it was going to be easier. I did
Right.
it because I thought my life would feel more like mine, like I had more
Hmm.
control and it was more authentic because I'm doing something I love. I'm doing it in the hours that I'm most productive, and I get to do it around my family. And so those
Yeah.
things keep me going. And the biggest things that I've learned really is just pushing past that perfectionism because I'm a planner. It took me forever to publish my first piece, my first sample that was going on my website that nobody was
Yeah.
going to see, right? Took me forever to write that because of the perfectionism thing. But I have found that the more I just put things out there that are slightly imperfect, the more comfortable I am doing that and the more opportunities that are starting to open up. I mean, I have done things that I would never have done a year ago, right? I
Yeah.
joined a bouldering gym and I'm terrified of heights. And not only did I join that bouldering gym, I took some classes, I made some friends, and I sent them an LOI. And I'm like, hey, if you're ever looking for
That is
me,
awesome.
I'm here. You'll see me at the gym. I'll be sweaty and gross, but I'm here. And so things that I never would have done, like there's just this self-confidence that has come with building my own business that feeds back into itself. So every bit of effort, every day that I spend 5 minutes doing something, one email, one LOI, one paragraph in that article that I'm trying to put out, it's literally going directly back into my business, back into my own energy.
Yep.
Um, and I think that's really important. And I think that once you take that first step and you just, you push through that beginning, it's hard. It's hard for everyone, that you will start to feel that energy coming back to you, and that kind of motivation circuit will start to, or feedback loop, I guess, will start to come back to you, and just keep at it.
100%. All it takes is that one small I still remember like the first dollar I made online, or the first $500 made online, or the first guest post that I got accepted. And those are all the things that you kind of say, "Oh my God, I did this." And it's like I think it's something that sometimes I look at as a flaw, but myself, I'm not a perfectionist. Like, I'm basically like 80/20. Let's like get it close and let's put it out there. And that's generally worked in my favor because I've published things and I know that if there's a spelling mistake or if I miss something, that I'm going to have a reader that is a perfectionist that's going to send me an email and yell at me for it. And there's
Yeah.
at times like people have been like, "Oh, that's unprofessional" or whatever, but usually by having that mindset of like, I'm just going to publish it, I'm going to put it out there, I'm going to put more out into the world rather than try and make sure that like every little thing is perfect. And that's served me well. And I think as a writer and as someone that's doing work online, if you can take that mindset, like obviously you want to be professional and make sure that it's good, but don't let your perfectionism get the best of you to the point where you're not putting everything out there and you're using this as an excuse. So
Right. And I think
Um,
one more thing that I learned that I meant to say as well was that, again, kind of along the lines of perfectionism, for me, I felt like I had to know right away what my niche was or the style of my writing or find my voice, right? And I have noticed that the more that I'm writing and working with clients, it's kind of revealing itself, right? Like the styles that I like to write in is a little bit more
yep.
journalistic or storytelling. And when I write those styles, I get really good feedback
Hmm.
from my clients. And when I write in other styles, like what is the feedback that I'm getting there? So it's again like you don't have to know all these things right away. As you work, you will start to figure these things out about yourself. So
Totally.
again, it's like just about doing.
And that's the thing, it's like the farther down the path you go as a writer, the more you realize where your strengths are, where your interests are, what niche you want to be a part of. And the only way to figure that out is by going through the process. And so, don't be afraid if you're just getting started, like, I don't know what I want to write about, or I don't know what my niche is, or I don't know what my strengths are, because you're going to figure all that stuff out as you go. So, anyway, thank you so much for taking the time to tell your story here, because I know what it's like where you're watching people online, you're thinking about it, you're trying to figure out if it can be you, if you can do it. You hear all these stories, and so I think having authentic stories like yours are just it's far more interesting to hear from you than it is from me, who's been doing it for a long time. So I appreciate you sharing that. For the person that's watching this and they want to hire you as a writer, they want to get to know you more. We'll link to that Medium article below. But is there any other place that people can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on my website, which is just AllisonTroutnerWriter.com. My gallery's there. I'm on Medium, so I post some things there. And Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever your pleasure is, I'm there. I'd love to have some more followers on Twitter. So find me there. I share links to articles, things I find interesting, as well as things I think might help other writers.
Fantastic. We'll make sure we link all those things in the comment section below. But otherwise, just want to say thank you. And if you do join Location Rebel, then you'll be able to see Allison on the forums, and you can talk to her there. So, yeah, thank you again.
Thank you so much.